Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining our webinar. Today, we will be talking about building cost-efficient open source cloud operations. My name is Omar Amin, and I'm a product manager at Canonical. So, in today's session, we will be talking about a business-centric IT and what is a business-centric IT, what are the biggest operational challenges facing IT departments, how can CIOs and IT decision makers gain more control over their budgets, how can they start leveraging managed service providers, and how does Canonical support your cloud journey? So let's start by discussing how to build a business-centric IT. But before we do this, why do organizations need to invest in technology? IT is an investment like any other investment an organization makes. The reason behind this investment is basically to cut down costs or improve productivity, or maybe increase innovation, or better serve their customers. And if we think about it, technological investments are typically driven by business goals or requirements. And the reasonable return on that investment is usually an expected outcome. It's not about the latest or most sophisticated technology an organization can use. It's about moving the business forward. So, what is not a business-centric IT? So how can IT support or oppose the business goals of an organization? When an organization is exploring a new technology solution, it might be very common to hear one of the following phrases. For example, we would like to implement this technology, but we have limited budgets, or we don't have the resources, whether human resources or technological resources, to manage these solutions. We don't have the know-how of such technology, or maybe we have technological limitation from other solutions that we have that might not integrate well with the new technology, or maybe we cannot handle the technical debt of this technology in the current situation. And in such scenarios, IT might be viewed as the source of friction opposing the achievement of specific business goals, or in some cases, maybe even as a bottleneck. However, it's very evident that the success of any business is heavily dependent on how they consume technology, or in other words, their IT strategy. It would be very unlikely to find a successful organization that doesn't have a solid IT organization. So, taking Amazon, being the biggest retailer and the most successful one in the world, is a great example on how technology has supported the achievement of business goals. So Amazon has proven to have a unique conversion rate, which according to some reports are almost 13% when you use their search engine, and a little above 2% just when you access the platform. And just to give a little context over here, the rivals convert 2 to 3% when their customers use their search engines, making Amazon's conversion rate more than 4 times its competitors. So using artificial intelligence, Amazon invented the concept of giving personalized recommendations using an algorithm they called item-based collaborative filtering. Or in simple words, this algorithm makes the homepage of each of their millions of users worldwide unique based on their interests and previous purchase histories. And if you think about this in the physical world, you can picture a scenario where you enter a store, and as you walk through the aisles are rearranging themselves based on your interests, with the ones that you are more likely to buy stocking right in front of you. And the moment you decide to search for an item, you never get a no for an answer. Amazon will always suggest a very relevant alternative if they don't sell the item you are looking for, even if the word used for the search was a typo. So, to sum this up, a CIO's IT strategy should complement the CEO's business strategy, and this is how technology supports business in a successful ecosystem. So, what does a business-centric IT look like? The rule of thumb is today's unique technology becomes tomorrow's commodity. So, take PCs for an example. There is nothing unique about them today. Any piece of suitable hardware will have a layer of operating system on top that will dictate how this piece of hardware should function, and anyone who has basic computer skills should be able to use them. Data centers should be designed in the same exact way, or in fact, this is how they actually evolved with time. So, starting with DAS, or direct attached storage servers, where servers were dedicated to run specific applications or services. This architecture relied heavily on how the hardware of every server performed. Although performance was really high, it gave little flexibility and hardware utilization was low, which questioned the hardware investments being made and whether a server with 10 to 15% of utilization makes a reasonable ROI. Then this architecture evolved into the three-tier architecture data center utilizing virtualization, where hardware utilization improved due to the possibility of resource pooling. However, this architecture lacked the flexibility due to the different layers involved in building the data centers and cost performance bottlenecks. It was not designed for commoditization and required different unique building blocks, so scaling was complicated. Then data centers evolved further towards the cloud era, mostly using and leveraging hyper-converged architecture. And this is basically built using the DAS servers that combine compute and storage together in one node. And all the intelligence was implemented on a software layer that is very easy to scale, and hardware has become completely commoditized. Now, this allowed modern data centers to be based on standard building blocks that are much easier to manage and scale and allowed for future flexibility. Open source cloud solutions like OpenStack and Kubernetes, and even proprietary solutions such as VMware, Microsoft, Nutanix are all examples of solutions that leverage the modern data center architecture to build clouds. So, how can we move towards a business-centric IT? First, standardize architecture and operations. You don't need to reinvent the wheel every time your requirements change. You need to build a cloud solution that can easily adapt for any use case without having to re-architect your data center. You have to keep in mind that the world we're living in today is very dynamic, and the business goals and requirements constantly change, and accordingly, your IT should be able to accommodate and adapt for all of these changes. When making an IT investment, make your business goals the center of the decision, not the technology. Create a clear process for measuring your IT investments and the return on those investments. And make sure you design your IT for flexibility, as requirements, as we mentioned earlier, are very dynamic, and make sure you are not stuck with a specific solution that might cause future friction. You also need to invest in the right decisions. Direct resources towards advancing the business rather than staying where you are. And most importantly, take risks. Explore how new technologies can better position your organization. So, what does it all have to do with open source, and how is innovation related to open source in general? So a recent report by 451 Research, Embracing the Enterprise Open Source Mandate, shows that 85% of organizations have an open source mandate to reduce costs and increase agility and flexibility. Now, this is because most cloud-native components are open source, such as containers, Kubernetes, OpenStack, serverless, and many databases and applications. The report also expects that companies that can successfully and effectively leverage open source will be better positioned to enable digital transformation and compete in their markets. But cloud-native tools are very complicated. You might be running open source databases and applications in a containerized environment on top of an OpenStack cloud, for example, and operating all of these is challenging. So what are the options? Maybe you can just leverage a public cloud service provider to run such a sophisticated cloud environment, making your IT as invisible as it can become. And here comes the most controversial question. Should I own or rent? Should I go for the private cloud or the public cloud? Now, every option comes with its own set of benefits and challenges. For the public cloud, the OpEx-based pay-as-you-go pricing model has made it very easy for many organizations to start a new service and direct their limited budgets towards the business goals rather than building a private cloud. It has made IT invisible and provided them with 24/7 operations, in addition to the many components of the cloud ecosystem that you can easily integrate just with a few clicks. However, it has proven that in the long term and at scale, public clouds has a significantly higher total cost of ownership. So the private cloud, on the other hand, allowed for full visibility and control over your full stack and provided better long-term economics and security measures. However, setting up a private cloud from scratch is expensive, and it requires a lot of know-how and resources to be able to manage that cloud. Now, if we go for a financial comparison and look from a financial perspective, it's clearly shown that a private cloud with efficient operations on the long term and at scale will be more cost efficient. It's very important to note that inefficient operations in a private cloud will lead to a higher TCO due to the financial impact of downtimes and loss potential and the overhead of operations. Now, in a very demanding and dynamic world, such as the one we live in today, IT decision makers should not settle for compromises when designing their infrastructure and operations. They should be able to find exactly what they're looking for to meet their business needs. We believe in a third better alternative, one that bridges the gap between both worlds and provides the maximum value. Now, the goal here is to provide organizations with a public cloud-like experience on premises exclusively. And with a managed cloud, you get the economics of a private cloud, the full control and visibility and security, while making your IT invisible just like the public cloud. And before we get into more details, let's look at the biggest challenges facing CIOs in the infrastructure and operations domain. So, according to recent researches from Gartner, LinkedIn, and Deloitte, the two biggest challenges facing CIOs post-COVID crisis are insufficient skilled resources and managing technical debt. Organizations are spending an average of 55% of their IT budgets on operations, and 60% of organizations are struggling to fill in vacancies within 12 weeks. Now, let's put all of these findings together in a meaningful way. COVID crisis has accelerated technology adoption and digital workplace transformation to enable secure remote working. And this accelerated motion has led to an additional layer of complexity in IT and the wider skill gap in organizations. And due to this technical complexity, organizations are spending the biggest portion of their budgets keeping the lights on. And when attempting to fill in the skill gaps, hiring consumes a lot of time and effort to find the right skills. And with the rate at which technology is advancing, the skill gap will keep widening with time to reach over 85 million people and over $8 trillion in lost potential by 2030. Now, let's dig deeper into these challenges. So first, where's the skill gap coming from? Technology is rapidly evolving, probably faster than organizations are adapting. Digitalized services, cloud computing, artificial intelligence, machine learning, data analytics, IoT, smart devices, driverless vehicles, and all of these technologies that add convenience to our everyday lives are also adding technical debt to organizations. All of these technologies and much more could be considered as a potential opportunity for any business. However, they all add to the technical complexity of the IT of an organization. And that is the biggest source of friction. So hiring or building expertise in any new technology requires a lot of investment and time. Deciding to lead the change in your market might be risky, but deciding to turn away is not really an option. So in the last several years, we have seen a lot of disruptions that pushed many organizations completely out of market. A good example here could be the many taxi cab providers who weren't able to survive the huge market disruption caused by Uber. And this just shows how missing to follow the direction of technology adoption within your market can put organizations at the risk of survival. So, how challenging can maintenance be? When deploying a new technology, setup is not the only challenge. What's even more important to achieve is keeping the windows clean, or in other words, building efficient operations. This includes maintaining your cloud's uptime, properly integrating with the different cloud components and services, managing the software lifecycle of your cloud components, and making sure they all work together properly as a well-coupled solution. And this is what leads to efficient operations. Missing to achieve all of these together leads to a higher total cost of ownership of your cloud. So how much are you spending to say where you are? As we said earlier, organizations are spending an average of 55% of their budget on operations, or in other words, staying where they are. But after spending that much on operations, they are typically left with a smaller portion to split between digital transformation, R&D, innovation, cost improvement, hardware and software investments. And if you think about it, the smaller portion is actually directed towards the activities that really help the business evolve. So this is basically where you want to invest more of your budgets. So how can we figure out the equilibrium point between technology adoption rate and technical complexity? To be able to gain more control over your budgets, you need to spend less on commodity tasks while building robust and efficient operations that will minimize downtimes and outages. Also, being able to have a rapid time to market to quickly realize the benefits of the technology you are investing in. Directing more resources towards advancing the business rather than keeping the lights on, and spending less effort in hiring and training for non-strategic activities. Focusing on all of these activities will help you find the equilibrium point between adopting new technologies and sustaining what you currently have or operate. Successfully achieving a business-centric IT creates more space for innovation. So by spending less on commodities like hardware and software, and then building smart and efficient operations, a significant portion of your IT budget could be redirected towards activities that really drive impact, such as R&D and innovation. Using this approach, you can do much more with your current budgets. So where is the starting point? Let's think of it this way. First, every activity in your IT department consumes a portion of your resources and accordingly could be considered as an investment. Now let's start categorizing your daily IT activities into an importance or urgency matrix. Quadrants 1 and 3 are urgent activities that usually require instant action. They usually require instant attention and accordingly shift your focus from everything else. It's very important to know that these reactive tasks will not improve your current state, but rather maintain it. The quadrants 2 and 4 are non-urgent or proactive tasks that might happen with no regard to an external simulation. So the goal of this exercise is to identify all the major activities within your IT organization and gain more control over your budgets. This should help you answer questions such as what consumes our budgets, where do we want to cut costs, and where do we want to invest more. So what to insource and what to outsource? What should be done with each category? Let's start with the urgent ones. So quadrant 1 are activities that include firefighting and crisis management. These activities are usually very urgent and require instant responsiveness. Any other activity is pushed aside till quadrant 1 issues are resolved and fixed. So common examples here would be power failure, outage in critical services and applications, security breaches, for example. Quadrant 3 activities are the ones that include emails, calls, and requests from other employees. These activities interrupt your focus and usually require prompt attention as well. Although they might not be very important activities, they get prioritized over important ones due to their urgency. Common examples here would be technical issues and support tickets, for example, or colleagues asking for help. Quadrant 2 activities are ones that include strategic planning and process improvement. These are very important for the organization. However, they are commonly overlooked due to the urgency of other activities that require instant action. Common examples would be digital transformation, exploring new technologies, long-term planning, and process improvement, for example. Quadrant 4 ones are activities that distract your focus. These are a complete waste of time that might grab your attention and affect your productivity. So common examples include scrolling social media or watching a YouTube video, for example. Let's start with the Q2 activities first. This is where an ideal IT department will spend most of their time, resources, and budget. So these activities are how an organization can implement a continuous improvement approach to their operations and evaluate how to leverage the latest technologies. This is where you want to shift your focus and efforts to drive the business forward. These strategic activities should always be insourced to keep them closely coupled and aligned with the overall business goals. Q4 activities are the ones that should be eliminated as they are a complete waste of time. And Q1 and Q3 activities are the ones that distract your focus from strategy and improvement, or from quadrant 2 activities. And in many cases, they might require specific technical expertise, making it even more costly to hire for and maintain full-time equivalents. These activities fall under categories that should be outsourced. Now, outsourcing these activities should help you cut down unnecessary operational costs, maintain your business focus, achieve faster time to market, minimize unplanned downtime and outages, and build 24/7 operations, and even fill in your skill gaps. So, how to assess a managed service provider? After creating a list of activities that consumes a significant portion of your budget, it's time to find a suitable managed service provider to help you offload them. Now, there are a lot of managed service providers out there. So how can you decide on which one will be the most suitable for your use case? Now, first and foremost, it's always pricing. How do they charge you for their services, and how fair is their pricing model when it comes to scaling or growing your workloads? And do they help you grow and scale? And are there any hidden costs associated with their services? Next, you can look at how comprehensive their offering is. How much can they help you offload, not only now, but now and in the future? You should always try to have some insights about the direction of your organization and expect what kind of services can be useful for your organization in the future. Then, let's take a look at how clear and transparent the managed service provider is. So, do you have complete visibility over your cloud services, and do they provide you with access to all the required dashboards? Additionally, what freedom of choice do they provide, and how flexible are they integrating additional components that you might need now or in the future? Another thing to look at is their technology experience and engineering focus. Do they understand or even contribute to the solutions you are hiring them for? And do they have relevant success stories in your industry, for example? And most importantly, security. How do they ensure your data and information is kept secure and confidential? And what kind of security measures and compliances they follow and have? So, after you have decided on your managed service provider, it's time to think about how to utilize your internal teams for future success. Insourced IT specialists are best positioned to advance the business as they understand the company's strategy, know the risks and constraints, and understand the industry's trends. They have the best potential to expect the future and prepare the organization for it. This is why these activities fall under the quadrant 1 activities that should always be insourced. Now that you have offloaded non-strategic activities out of your team's plate, they can now focus more on strategic activities and become more productive in these activities. And as your team explores the possibilities of digital transformation ahead of time, it is much easier to prepare for the future requirements that you don't have yet. So, for example, knowing that you have plans to implement artificial intelligence and machine learning next year, you will be able to invest in developing your team skills and capabilities in this direction specifically. This way, you are building the skills ahead of time rather than hiring for them, countering the market skill gap insufficiency. Building this culture will also help you better retain the most valuable asset within your IT organization, your IT specialists. So, how does Canonical support your cloud journey? The goal is to run your business applications that will improve productivity or better serve your customers. To be able to do this, a lot of the underlying dependencies are required to be implemented. Although, from the business perspective, they're not really important. So what you really need to focus on is the application layer on top of these dependencies, such as OpenStack, Ceph, Kubernetes, or bare metal clouds, for example. So at Canonical, we focus on offloading as much of the underlying dependencies from your plate to allow you to better focus on driving the business forward. Our goal is to provide you with a public cloud-like experience on premises and make IT as invisible as it can be. This results in an efficient operational model that cuts down operational costs, time, and effort associated with keeping the lights on, and allows you to focus more on the application layer as we take care of the underlying dependencies. We're even adding the applications layer to our services to help organizations offload more dependencies and maintain business focus on the application layer that really drives impact. This includes the most widely used open source applications, enablers, and databases. And for organizations running hybrid cloud infrastructure, we provide management for their open source applications in Kubernetes anywhere, whether running on bare metal, VMs, or in the public cloud. We call it Bootstack, and this is short for build, operate, and optionally transfer. So our cloud experts will design and build your cloud solutions using Canonical's state-of-the-art tools. And they will work with your teams to define the requirements and design the right cloud infrastructure requirements for your business needs. The cloud will be built on top of Ubuntu certified hardware, either on premises or hosted in a hosting facility. And after that, we operate the cloud for you. Our support teams will monitor and manage the entire cloud infrastructure and applications, including the OpenStack, the Kubernetes, bare metal cloud, Ceph storage, open source applications and databases, and provide you with all the benefits of a private cloud and taking away the pain of the day-to-day infrastructure management. The SLA for operation will cover the cloud availability at the scale desired by our organization, as well as the uptime and responsiveness matrix that apply as long as Canonical is operating the cloud for you. And then you can take ownership of the cloud services at any time if you think it's more economic or strategic to insource it. Our goal is to help you accelerate the adoption of the new technology and remove any friction opposing the business goals. Once your internal cloud operations team is fully staffed and ready to manage the cloud, we can provide the trainings and transfer the keys and the cloud management to your team. We help customers from different industries all around the world build smart operations and cut down keeping the lights on costs. This includes financial sector, insurance, telecoms, retail, technology, and software companies all around the world. So to sum this up, you need to focus on your business. So we use best practices while deploying your services, which means less day-to issues and errors, the main driver of total cost of ownership. This way, you focus more on your business and we take care of the underlying dependencies. You can leverage our team of experts to create global IT operations without having to expand your business globally. We provide reliable and robust operations utilizing automation and managed by technology-specific experts all around the world. Automation of operations in cloud software lifecycle explains how Canonical can provide management at the lowest price point. We provide you with a flexible pricing model that helps you grow your workloads without being penalized wherever they reside, and make sure you get the best value out of your investment in technology. And we provide you with a simple approach to consume open source software and fill in any skill gaps without having to hire to keep the lights on. This accelerates your time to market and allows your teams to focus more on innovation. Last but not least, if you would like to learn more about our managed services, please check the additional resources here, including our managed website at ubuntu.com/managed, or you can check our white paper, Managed IT Services, Overcoming CIO's Biggest Challenges, or our webinars, How to Manage Risks with the Top 1% Managed Service Providers, or a hosted private cloud infrastructure cost analysis. Thank you very much. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to get in touch with us on our website and leave us any questions, and we will always be happy to help you and support you. Thank you very much for joining us today.